hopefully my camera cooperates with me today. I think I've got things set up correctly to where this shouldn't just stop recording like it did the last time, but we'll see. Hi there, welcome back to Sharks Stims. My name is May. I am the neurodivergent mom of a nonverbal and autistic, almost 4-year-old. Only got a couple months left until he turns 4. If I sound a little off, that would be because I'm having some really bad allergies right now. I actually tried to record this yesterday and had to stop because I started losing my voice, so hopefully I sound okay-ish today. I do feel a little better, so I'm hopeful that this will sound better. Today I want to talk about something that I've actually already written a blog post about, and that I will link that in the description box below if you want to check out that blog post and read more detail and in-depth and get some other information that I might not include in this video. But today I want to talk about what to do if you think that your child has autism. Now, as a disclaimer, and basically every video and every blog post and every time I talk about these kinds of things, I am not a medical professional. I am not a child development professional. I am not a special education teacher or anything like that. I am just a mom who has learned so much since her son was diagnosed with autism at the age of just 21 months old. If you want to hear more about my son's story and our family's journey of him being diagnosed and receiving therapies and now starting in special education classes now that he's almost 4, you can watch the video that I actually just posted last week, which was the first video on the Sharks and Stims YouTube channel, and that's all about E's story. Okay, so you think your child might be autistic. What do you do now? The first thing that you need to do is just breathe. I know that that kind of sounds ridiculous, but when you start to notice that your child may have some atypical development going on, or you're worried that they could potentially have a disability, things can start to get stressful. And it's not an easy path to start walking down. It's not an easy thing for a family to go through. The first thing I want you to do is just breathe. It's going to be okay. No matter if your child is autistic or not, I promise you it is going to be okay. The second thing that I think every parent should do is to sit down and ask themselves, why do I think my child is autistic? There are a lot of stereotypes about autism in this world, and a lot of people don't understand what autism is. And that can lead to a lot of parents thinking that their child may be autistic because they're just thinking of some of the characteristics that are stereotypes of kids with autism, but don't actually have anything to do with the core of what autism is. Autism is a developmental disability that is characterized by delays or deficits in social communication. That's kind of a mouthful, and that's more the medical model terms than what autism is. We know so much more about autism now. We know that autism is a neurotype and it has to do with the way someone's brain is wired, and it's not something that can so easily be put into just a few words, but that is the core of what autism is. Some of the things that may cause parents to think that their child may be autistic are things like hand flapping, walking on their tippy toes, doing a few repetitive movements every day, looking out of the corners of their eyes, things like that. Those can be part of autism. In fact, my autistic son does many of those things, and repetitive movements and stimming can be part of autism, but that is not the core of what autism is. If your child has no social communication delays, they are not autistic. You have to have social communication delays or deficits to receive an autism diagnosis. Now, that can look different for every kid. I don't want to go too much into what social communication is or the specific signs of autism, because that's not really what this video is about, and I might actually do a video about those things in the future, but I am going to link down below some information about social communication and signs of autism. If you are worried about autism because your child walks on their tippy toes every once in a while, or spins in a circle a few times a day, or flaps their hands, or makes weird noises, or does anything like that, more than likely your child is not autistic. There's more to autism than these quirks that people seem to associate with it. Now, if your child is showing signs of developmental delays, they're having a hard time communicating their wants and needs, they're having a hard time socially compared to typical peers their age, these can be signs of autism. When your child is actually showing signs of autism, that is when you need to speak to their pediatrician. Your child's pediatrician is going to be the very first resource that you want to reach out to if you are concerned about your child's development. During regular well baby and well child checks, your child's pediatrician will probably have you fill out different questionnaires and developmental screeners and things of that nature to help determine if they are developing typically. If you have any questions or concerns about your child's development, you can always bring that up to their pediatrician. And I would hope that every family has a pediatrician that they can trust. And if your child's pediatrician is not concerned about their development, is not concerned that they may be autistic, then you should hopefully be able to trust them when they say that. Now, sometimes pediatricians do brush off parents with legitimate concerns. This isn't a common occurrence. If your child's pediatrician is someone you trust and they're telling you that your child is developing typically, you should be able to trust them. Now, if your child's pediatrician agrees that you do have some legitimate concerns, they may refer you to a developmental pediatrician who are the actual experts on child development, because while a normal pediatrician knows what typical child development looks like, they don't know as much about atypical child development. So they may refer you to a developmental pediatrician or a pediatric psychologist or a more specialized medical professional than themselves. They may also be able to refer your child for something like speech therapy or occupational therapy if those are things that your child needs. They may also suggest a wait and see approach. Now, this can be pretty controversial because a lot of people push for early intervention, and the earlier you get started on things, the better. But sometimes a wait and see approach is actually appropriate for a child. And again, this is something that you need to discuss with your child's pediatrician about your specific concerns and your specific child. The other thing you can do if you're worried about your child's development is contact either your local early intervention program or your local school district. From birth to age 3, your local early intervention program is who you would contact. You can search your city or county and the words early intervention on Google, and that should show you who and where you should contact for a potential developmental evaluation through early intervention. If your child is over the age of 3, you would contact your local school district. Yes, even for a 3-year-old, you would contact your local school district, and they would be able to help you with potentially getting services for your child if they determine that your child is eligible for services such as speech therapy or occupational therapy or other kinds of classes and accommodations if they're a little bit older. So if your child is over the age of 3, you would want to contact your local school district. The process can vary a little bit depending on where you are and where you live. This is the case in the United States. After you contact either early intervention or your child's school district, they will more than likely do some kind of evaluation on your child. Now, this is not an autism evaluation. Early intervention and school districts are not qualified to give a medical diagnosis of autism or ADHD or any other kind of neurodivergence. What they can do is a general developmental evaluation to determine if your child has developmental delays or behavioral concerns and what are the areas that they may need some extra help in. Again, these evaluations can look different depending on the child and the program and the area that you're in. For us, our son was initially evaluated at about 19 months old by an early intervention program, and then we were given something called an IFSP, which I believe stands for an Individualized Family Service Program. May be wrong on that. After that, E started receiving services through an early intervention program where we actually did something called the Play Project. Now, this isn't something that's available in every early intervention program. Again, this is very location and program dependent, but E did the Play Project through early intervention for about 6 or so months before we ended up moving. And then when we moved to where we currently reside in Omaha, Nebraska, we contacted our local school district because they are also who handles the early intervention programs here in Nebraska. So they also did their own evaluation on E, and he was able to start receiving services through them until he turned 3. Once E started getting closer and closer to his 3rd birthday, it was very clear that he was still going to need services just because he's very developmentally delayed and he is autistic. As he approached 3, we started transitioning into something called an IEP rather than an IFSP. IEP stands for an Individualized Education Plan. This is a legally binding agreement with the school district stating what kind of services and accommodations that they are going to be required to offer your child. There is also something called a 504 plan, which is different from an IEP, but I'm not 100% sure on the specifications of that because we've never had a 504 plan for our son. He's only he had the IFSP and now he has an IEP, so I'm not very well versed on 504 plans. But what I am going to do is in the description box, I am going to link some more information about IFSPs, IEPs, 504 plans, and things like that. The wait lists for things like seeing a developmental pediatrician or a pediatric psychologist or going through with some kind of autism evaluation, those wait lists can be really long. In some areas of the US and the rest of the world, they can be up to 2 years long. I've actually even heard of longer. Hopefully that is not the case in your area and that you will be able to get the needed evaluation for your child as soon as possible. But if you are not able to get that medical evaluation very quickly, this is where going through early intervention or your local school district can be really helpful, because it helps your child start to receive the services that they may need. And I know that this is hard, but this is when you just really need to be patient. And I know that that is easier said than done when you are worried about your child and their development, and there's all of these unknowns and all of these questions. But when you have a child with a disability or developmental delays or special needs, these kinds of things are a marathon, not a sprint. And you have to learn how to be patient, and you have to learn how to work through these periods of waiting without it being detrimental to your own mental health. That is something that is so important, is to make sure that you are still focusing on your own mental health and that you are taking care of yourself at the same time as taking care of your child. The mental health of a parent can very greatly impact the mental health of a child. So during this period of time, this unknown, this waiting, you have to learn how to be patient and how to take care of your own mental health so you're not causing any kind of negative impact on your child, which I know that being patient and handling your mental health is definitely easier said than done, but it will be so much better for your child and your family and yourself if you make sure that you are also taking care of you. One great thing you can do is actually to connect with other parents who are dealing with the same thing as you. Now, this may be seeking out parents who are also waiting for an evaluation, or parents of children with developmental disabilities. There are so many ways that you can connect with other parents, both in person and online. If you're not comfortable with connecting with other parents with similar concerns and worries about their children in person, there are so many opportunities to do so online. Personally, I have connected with so many different parents on my Instagram account, both parents of already diagnosed children, parents who are starting to become concerned about their child's development but aren't quite sure, parents who are on wait lists for evaluations. I have connected with so many different parents of children who are similar to mine, and connecting with these other parents has, I believe, helped them, and it has also helped me, because I know that there are people out there who understand my concerns and my worries and what is going on. Another great thing you can do is actually to connect with autistic adults. Truthfully, in situations like this, I think that speaking to neurodivergent parents of neurodivergent children is the absolute best thing you can do. While neurotypical parents of neurodivergent children also understand what you're going through, I think that it is so important to talk to neurodivergent adults, because they are the ones that actually have some kind of personal insight into what might be going through your child's mind right now. And the reason why I suggest talking to parents versus neurodivergent adults that don't have children is that they can also relate to your worries as a parent. So not only can they potentially relate to your child, they can relate to you. Now again, listening to any kind of neurodivergent adult about neurodivergence and autism is an amazing thing. Listening to neurotypical parents and their experiences raising their neurodivergent children can be an amazing thing. But truthfully, I believe that listening to neurodivergent parents of neurodivergent children is going to be one of the best things that you can do during this time period. And the last tip I actually have for you is to read a few books. There are so many books out there about autism, and there are so many that I definitely don't recommend, but there are also a number of books that I absolutely recommend to anybody who wants to learn more about autism and neurodivergence. Specifically, I think that everybody in the world should read Uniquely Human by Barry Prezant. Dr. Prezant was truthfully one of the first people to look at autistic individuals as more than just their diagnosis. And if you've read any of his work or listen to his podcast that he actually hosts with an adult autistic man, the podcast name is also Uniquely Human, you would just hear how knowledgeable this man is and how incredible he is when it comes to working with autistic kids and adults. Dr. Prezant has such a wealth of knowledge, and I recommend his book to literally everyone. The other book that I really highly recommend is the book Not What I Expected by Rita Einstein. The reason why I suggest this book, because even though it isn't specifically about autism, it is a book for parents of atypical children and how you can handle all of the feelings and emotions and the stress that comes with raising atypical children. This is another book that I recommend to pretty much anyone that will listen, and both Not What I Expected and Uniquely Human are two books that absolutely changed my life. There are a couple other books that I recommend for people who want to learn more about autism or how they can help their children that they suspect may be autistic, and those are actually going to be linked in the blog post that I have written about this exact topic of what do I do if I think my child is autistic, and so you can find more books listed at the link in the description box. So that was probably quite a bit of information. And I know that this is a very stressful time, and it's scary because the unknown is always scary. But the thing about parenting in general is that you never know what's going to happen in the future. And yes, autistic children and autistic adults are disabled and they struggle more than your typical child or your typical person, but I promise you, it is going to be okay. Your child has an amazing brain. Absolutely amazing. I mean, all brains are really cool, but truthfully, neurodivergent brains are they're just so beautiful. I think that my son has the most incredible brain in the world. I am one of those parents that would not take away my child's autism. His autism is part of what makes him who he is. And whether or not your child is autistic or not, who your child is isn't going to change. Getting a diagnosis or a label or anything like that is not going to change who your child is. It just may help you understand them a little bit better. It may help you get the resources and the help that they need for their struggles. Now, when I talk about things like early intervention and therapies and things like that, I'm not talking about treating a child's autism. Autism is not something that is meant to be treated, but what you can treat or help are the developmental delays and the everyday struggles that your child may be facing. So if you are concerned that your child is potentially autistic, my advice to you is to breathe, to sit and think about why you think your child is autistic, to speak to their pediatrician, who you hopefully can trust to be honest with you on whether or not you have valid concerns. Contact your local early intervention program or school district depending on your child's age. Be patient, which I know is easier said than done. Connect with other parents who understand what you're feeling and what you're going through. And read some books about autism. Learn about it. It's such a fascinating thing, honestly, to learn about, to read about autistic children and their minds and how they work, and to read about autistic adults and their minds and how they work is genuinely such an intriguing thing. And I think that everyone in the world should take some time to learn about autism and what it is and about autistic individuals. That's all I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. And like I said, I'm going to have a bunch more information and resources linked in the description box below, and I'll see you guys in my next video.